Tom Martin. And what if I were to tell you that you have amazing gifts and talents inside, you have unlimited potential, you have what it takes to create an amazing life of impact and of fulfillment? Well, welcome to another episode of Tom Martin Media Presents. And this is a fresh new opportunity for me to introduce you to people who I have in my life, who I find inspiring, profound, and transformational, and hear them share a little bit about their journey and also offer us some suggestions and ideas and strategies that each of us can implement into our own lives. And I love topics like this, and I'm so honored that one of my favorite people has agreed to join me. This is episode number 2 of Tom Martin Media Presents, and please welcome author, life coach, and amazing human, Michael Nitti. Welcome, Michael. How are you?
Well, thank you, Tom. I don't know about the amazing human part, but I'm guilty as charged on the other two. So
It's true. It's true. Yeah, and Michael's the author of 2 excellent books, both of which I highly recommend. Mastery, right here, Mastery, The Art of Living on Purpose, the 12 Distinctions of Mastery that he wrote with his daughter, Erica. And also a book that somebody in I led a mastermind group for a few years, and a fellow by the name of Marcus Malik, young man from Germany, said, "You've got to read this book, The Trophy Effect." And so I encourage all of you to read The Trophy Effect as well. But these are great books. And before we get into some of the ideas that you share in there, because I think they'll really make a big difference to people listening and people who have joined us, Michael, tell us a little bit about your journey. You've become a world-renowned coach, and you've worked and inspired so many people around the world, a lot of them household names. But I'd love to hear how you got started on that path. I'd really love to hear about that.
okay, well, the enhancement of it to the degree that I become world renowned, whatever that might mean, and coach on a very high level with some very amazing, well-known individuals, has a lot to do with the fact that I was Tony Robbins' top coach for many years. And that's after I was an executive with Tony for many years. So I was able to help manage the team, partner with Tony in many ways. And then when he realized I was already coaching, he said, "Well, I think we need you more as a coach than as an executive. I can get those. Those are a dime a dozen." So in 2005, I became a coach for Tony full time, and then took on a lot of his high-end clients and stuff like that. But obviously, I was already a coach even when Tony hired me in 1997, and I'd been coaching ever since the early 80s. After my, a lot of life situations, like we all have at a young age, or as we're growing up and in my 20s, I had no clue. And ended up with a terrible situation from my perspective, where my best friend actually ran away with my wife at the time. So, that wasn't a lot of fun. And I was actually suicidal. And fortunately, that never happened. And but I was in such a bad shape. One of the engineers at our company said, "Oh, I got something you got to do. And it's an amazing thing. You should go to the introduction to it tonight." And I had nobody was done. I knew nothing about self-help. I knew nothing in my early 20s. And so it was about the EST training and Werner Erhard. And I didn't have any clue what it was or who he was. I went to the introduction, and it spoke to me. And I was like, wow, I didn't know anything like this. What's it gonna? Not feeling so good, might as well do it. So I did it, and it completely turned my life around in 2 weekends. And to the degree that I mean instantly. And I became a teacher and speaker for them, and was doing it for many, many, many years. And then in 1987, I think, I was friends with a gentleman who told me about Tony Robbins. And because Tony was just getting started, and it turns out he was all turned on by Tony Robbins. Said, you got to come. You're good at what you do with that training, all that stuff. It's just up your alley. And you come out and you walk on some fire. And I went, wait, walk on fire? It's like, I don't get how that, I'm open to it, but I don't think so. So
you have some kind of out of the box friends. Some friends would say, pick up a hobby or something, but the walk on fire thing is cool.
It was cool, but it was in California. I was in Ohio, and I didn't feel like going all the way to California as much as I'd like to go to California to walk on fire. And we stayed in touch for a while, but it turns out he was an attorney and turned out to be a very close friend of Tony's. And Tony eventually hired him to be CEO. And he was a good friend of mine. And he went off and helped run Robbins research out in California. And we kept in touch a little bit, but I never even went and did any Tony work, actually. Then one day in 1997, several years later, he called. I get home from a little shopping trip with my wife, and there's a message on the answering machine that says, Nitti, Sam Georges, give me a call. And I looked right at my wife, hadn't talked to him in years, and I said, honey, we're moving to San Diego.
Wow.
And of course, she said, I don't think so. My family's here. I go, honey, I said San Diego. We're in Portland. So anyway, he brought me out for a month, and it all worked out, and they hired me. And then I flew Julie out a little bit later, and the rest is history. But and then a lot of great things happened in between. But it's a miracle in my life that it all happened coincidentally that I ended up with Mr. Robbins. And
that's wonderful. Yeah, no, I definitely want to hear more about that. I never want these interviews to be about me, but I can't resist throwing in how, some moments in my life kind of coincide with what you're talking about here. And, we were speaking on the phone recently, and I'd mentioned how when I was a kid growing up in Miami, I had a very inspiring mentor who I was interested in magic, still love magic. And so this fellow, Alvin Goodman, taught magic every Saturday at the local museum. And he was a very colorful guy, attorney, and so on. Years later, he ended up introducing me to Muhammad Ali, who also liked magic tricks, which was awesome. But right around the time I graduated from college, my friend Alvin said, hey, Tom, I've been doing some traveling to India and so on, and I just participated in this amazing program. You really must do this, kind of like your friend said, the EST training. This was like 1983, and I know it'd been around for a while at that point. And said, wow, I don't know. And at that time, there was also like maybe a little, I don't know, stigma is not the right word, but it's like, oh, I don't know, that's kind of mysterious. What's that all about? I don't know. But it's like, no, I trust my friend. I'm going to do this. And it was a really amazing experience. I mean, one thing that I still got out of that was my first, experience in kind of in the world of personal development, which I love now. I love coaches and speakers and courses and so on. And I'm even expanding into that a little bit myself. But it really, the one thing that I got out of that is, in addition to learning about, the precision in use of language, Werner Erhard just really spoke about using language precisely, which was certainly interesting. But again, learning about how we all have a story, again, like, well, I can't do it because here's my story. And I realize, let's just cut through all that. I mean, with all due respect to, we have sad times and loss and regret and all that. And, it's fine. But, I really want to hear from you, your take on all that, especially, having really immersed yourself in that material, teaching and coaching there. But it does seem like, because I want people, listening to these interviews to come away with maybe some new insights, looking at their lives a little bit differently, perhaps. But it does seem like there are times when we kind of get in our own way or undercut our own opportunities for progress. And do you feel that? And what are your thoughts about that?
Well, yes, we're all driven by our stories, but we've made those stories up. But unfortunately, most of us haven't made our stories up. Our mind, our survival mind, has made up the stories for us. And of course, that purpose of the survival mind, the animalistic and survival mind, because we are animals, is survival. It's as simple as that. And so it's always on the lookout for things that will cause us and enable us to survive. And so it's not going to want us to have a wake up in the morning and say, I think I'm going to climb a mountain and do all these great things and start a business. That's dangerous. I'm sorry, we don't want you doing that. And it whispers in our ear why we shouldn't. And not only is it whispering in our ear why we shouldn't, it's not even usually allowing us to even get anywhere near that kind of a thought, because it's always pointing out to us what we're doing wrong. Okay, we have two primary fears: the fear that we're not good enough and that we won't be loved. And so the mind, no matter what it's telling us, is going to filter it through those two filters. And we're not built to feel good about ourselves. We're built to be safe and careful. And but yet we also are fully inspired by things that happen, or can be inspired. So we always want to take that first step. I want to do that. And then somehow the mind will talk us out of it. And what it does is it collects all the proof and holds into the memory of our mind all the proof of the times we didn't do good enough, So if we ever think we want to do something, it can show us all those little failures that we've collected for years and years and years and years, which it stores in the form of trophies, hence my first book, The Trophy Effect. Okay. And it reminds us of those things. And by the time it's done reminding us of all our failures and all the times, and it doesn't have to be big failures. It could just be that we backed out of something, or we didn't approach somebody, or whatever it does. Aha, you're not good enough. It remembers that. And then when we do go to do something great or want to change careers or do something that might be a little risky, the mind will point out to us all the times where we have proof in our mind that we're not good enough. And we go, well, maybe I'll just have lunch.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. And I would imagine, I mean, you can tell me if my supposition is correct, but and elaborate on it, of course. But I would imagine that, when you entered, well, certainly your work with Werner Erhard and the EST training, but also especially in your work with Tony Robbins and the kind of clients who were attracted and still are attracted to Tony. There are so many people at a very high level of success, entrepreneurs, people in the entertainment industry, athletes, and so on. And maybe some of us feel like, well, there are those high achievers and great success stories, and then there's the rest of us. But did you find that people who are, quote unquote, the real success stories, they also have their mind kind of playing tricks on them and keeping them from fully expressing themselves and that kind of thing?
Always, unless they are what you and I might call narcissistic, or so full of themselves that although that allowed them to become successful, and they just went out there and bull their way through life and everything else. And I'm not saying they don't have an ability and an intelligence about them to be kind, or they couldn't be where they are if they were stupid. But it comes across as something other than that, and they don't care. And maybe because they don't care, they just get there quicker. I don't know. But the average person I'm coaching, whether they're an entertainer, a movie star, a well-known anybody. I mean, I was privileged to coach one of the top doctors on the planet who had a client who was the executive producer of the show Extra. And so she had some challenges in her life. I coached her. At about 5 sessions in, she goes, I got this series called Mastery on Extra. And, and everybody's been on it. Deepak's been on it. Everybody, all these people. Now, I'm not well known at the time. And she goes, I can't believe how you've shifted my life. I'm declaring you a master.
Yeah.
Come out here and be on my show. So I sat there and I said, it was just amazing. And so, but that kind of stuff just keeps happening to me. But my point is, she, a very successful woman, she's in your genre, she knows how we know a lot of people together. She was phenomenal, but she had, there's always something that they're looking at that would, whatever it is that I can bring to the party, and then they can take from what I'm coaching them, shift something in them to the degree that it happens pretty quickly. It happens pretty quickly because we're not teaching them something that they have to learn like you do in 4 years of college. We're causing them to see and have an immediate revelation that, oh my God, that's why I've been doing that. And they see it like it's true. And they can say, well, I'm not doing that anymore. So it's really kind of that quickly. And I don't think I've ever run into anybody that after just 3 or 4 sessions, they get to that place. And now we ingrain it in. Now we take I've had clients that have been with me for 15 years. So we're no longer fixing them or resolving something, but now we're just allowing them to see at a very clear level what it is they need to do. And now there's a partnership that gets created where they just explode. They just take it to the limit. But they also then bring a lot of the knowledge that they learned while we were coaching in the earlier days to the party, where it's much easier for them to now understand the people they're working with, because now they know why those people they're working with are hesitating or seem to be operating from a place other than pure certainty. And that brings me to the real crux of my teaching, which is causing people to just not become clear or knowledgeable or understanding or more open and enlightened, but to cause them to realize that the real source of their ability to succeed has to do with causing themselves to become more certain. I teach something called supreme certainty. And it's just not, well, you just don't tell them, well, you should be more certain.
Yeah, sure.
But I bring them through a process to where they're able to see that exists within them. And it's just a beautiful thing. So yeah.
Absolutely. No, I love that. Again, I've enjoyed getting into coaching a little bit myself as far as coaching, well, what do you do to get more media attention? And, I kind of usually say, let's go from vagueness or uncertainty to, taking action. And because often it's trial and error, but also I know Tony Robbins teaches a lot about distinctions. And, again, when I've heard him talk about mastery, he says, the master of whatever field it may be, martial arts, hot air ballooning or whatever, it's like knows those distinctions. And how can we be expected to know those distinctions if we're just new to it? So let's not beat up on ourselves. Let's take those steps into it and, gain that knowledge and so on. I also often talk about how, again, when I spent a couple of years as a producer for Good Morning America, we had a really wonderful executive producer, Shelley Ross, and she said, okay, guys, tomorrow morning, we have 16 segments on the show, 2-hour show. In every one of them, the audience is looking for one thing, what's in it for me, consciously or subconsciously, because we live in a, again, I've heard Tony Robbins talk so much about how we're like filled to the brim. Like, do we have room to take in another iota or drop of any other information? But if it relates to us, if it can help us, if it can transform our lives, like, yes, we have room, you've got my attention. But again, our great executive producer Shelley Ross said, what are some nuggets, if people listen to even a 5-minute interview, is there something that maybe you can say, hey, you might try such and such? And then they say, wow, I did that person is a great expert. I wonder if they have a book, or if they are available for hire, or have a program or something like that. But is there anything that you can think of, maybe, to encourage us to get out of our comfort zone, or maybe not be too hard on ourselves, or to create a little distance from that survival mind that we're talking about? Is there any advice that you have for people? Maybe they want to reach a wider audience. Maybe they want to try to get some media attention. Does anything come to mind for you?
Well, the first thing that always comes to mind with anything when I'm asked a question like that is that we all have it within us to do that. And most of us don't think so. We think somebody else is born with maybe more than we have, or they're smarter, they went to school. I never went to college. And even if they're talented in one area, but completely, left-footed in another area. I mean, it's really just having them see what it was that caused them to become successful or great at the thing they do, and realize that the same ability exists in other fields or whatever they want to go. And so, like, I remember I coached the MMA star Chuck Liddell through Dancing with the Stars. Okay, he's not a dancer, but he was ready to drop out after 2 sessions. Said, I don't know how I got into this thing, but we got him to make last 7 or 8 weeks. No, he was still not a world-class dancer, but I've done that similar stuff with other people, and I wish I had the nugget to tell you what I did, because it's a function of an ongoing conversation, an intentional conversation, where they're able to look and see what it is that's actually preventing them from doing what they're doing. Because we all have an inner talent within us. If you're a big athlete, if you're 6'9", maybe you can dunk a basketball better than somebody else. But for the most part, if anybody with an intention to make something happen has the ability to do that.
Yeah.
And but not just to kind of fumble through, but to be passionate about it, and to actually see that there's something about the fact that you're even becoming that is something that you build momentum off of. And I'm able to teach them to do that. I wish I had the nugget, because it's not really just a nugget. It's an ongoing, it's a little bit of a conversation to cause them, mostly to release what's stopping them from doing it. That's really,
yeah. I'm sure it's an ongoing process. In fact, yeah, it's funny. Often with friends, I mean, for years, ever since I went to Tony's weekend program, Unleash the Power Within. I think it was 1999. I've been a fan ever since, and I've done a little, I produced a half hour on Tony for CNN when I was there, and that was like 20 years ago now. But I often tell my friends, I feel like, again, I don't know if you would agree with, Tony's diagram relating to mastery, but he says, okay, well, when you're starting something like learning to play tennis for the first time or something, there's progress, but then you hit a plateau, and then he draws the tangled string or whatever. And I've said so many times in my life, and in fact, right now, over the past year or so, I felt like I was in kind of one of those tangled string plateaus, but I'm ready to move to another level now. Do you think that that's an accurate, description or illustration of what we go through, what you're talking about?
It is because we now own ourselves. It's a higher level of tangled strings. So we're kind of comfortable with it. And when we go to break free of it, at first, we get stuck in the tangled string. So it's like, well, maybe I'm not meant to do this or whatever it would be. And we think, well, I guess I'm just this or whatever. So we got to get that before you got to the even level of the tangled string, you weren't there. So it's always within us to be able to break free. And sometimes it's just a fear that we're breaking free, but it's mostly up to usually a belief system that maybe it's not for me or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of self-certainty, a lot of self-inspiration that we cause them to be able to access because we all have the ability to do that. And just go out there and make it happen. Seriously, it's not rah, come on, you can do it. But it's mostly breaking free of the limiting beliefs that we've built over time that allowed us to get over here, but isn't going to allow us to get over here. And it's amazing the privilege I have of working with some of these high level people. I mean, it's just crazy. Where you find out that you would think they wouldn't have anything going on or stopping them from anything, but they do. And it's just a privilege to be able to work people through those things.
Yeah, no, it's really fascinating. As you were talking earlier, I was thinking, I wanted to ask you, do you think maybe we're too hard on ourselves or we're limiting ourselves? I'm imagining like being on the edge of a pond and it's like a beautiful day. It's like, I don't really know how to ice skate, but wouldn't it be wonderful to like venture out a little bit and, it's like just feel a little freer, enter into that spirit of play a little bit and saying, no, Tom, you've never done that. It's crazy. What a stupid idea. It's like, okay, yeah. What a stupid idea. But I mean, just give ourselves a little bit of a break to maybe that is just getting out of our comfort zone. I don't know.
Well, it is because you've still got to put it out there. I mean, but it's mostly a limiting belief born from the past. I don't care how successful you are. I once coached an ex-president of Disney. I mean, the person didn't get there by accident. Fly, wait in the lobby and get hired. So yet they were no longer there because there were some challenges back in the early 20s that caused a shift. And they were even on cover of magazines and all kind of things. And yet there was still something there that was preventing it from what's next. And not just preventing what's next, causing, no matter how successful people are sometimes, they are then diminished by some kind of a failure or something, which maybe not even be a failure, just a shift in, circumstances. And then they're stuck there. So it's really getting people to see that you're only stuck to the degree that you're telling a story that's why you're stuck. And seriously, and then then you shift. You just simply intentionally shift and be willing to face whatever's going on, and you're able to get past it. Now, I take them through some exercises that enable them to do that. But again, they have to have certainty first. It's like, well, after I do it, I'll become certain. But if you watch some great athletes, the difference between the ones that are really great and the ones that aren't, do they really have more skill? No, they've just realized that they just know what they're doing. When you watch a basketball player, it's an amazing thing. The ball leaves their hands, it goes 40 feet, and they get a three-pointer. And there's people like Seth Curry and other players that just have. Now, do they really have more skill? I promise you they do, but it's married to a sense of certainty that I just know this is going in.
Yeah. No,
and you think, well, they must just have that. No, that's evolved. Some of it's, well, the more you do it, the more you think it. But it's still, first the certainty comes, then you start sinking the three-pointers. First the certainty comes, then you're able to write the book. Now, did the certainty grow to some degree as you're writing? Yes, but you can't wait for the certainty. You got to bring it. So it's all, you've heard fake it till you make it, but it's not fake it till you make it. It's be certain until you make it. In the beginning may feel a little fraudulent, but if you look, what I do is have them take it back in time where they don't realize they've done that already somewhere. Oh yeah, I remember when I walked in and applied for that one job, I just kind of knew I was going to have it. Well, there you go, you have it. And then for some reason you've lost it. Well, I can't do it here. And so that's what it's about. Just attaining a sense of certainty as you're moving forward rather than wait till it shows up.
I love it. Well, my friend, I think you've given us a nugget right there. I mean, I know there's probably a little, back, reverse engineering and stuff like that, a process. But again, we can all kind of step into what you just described to us. And, what's the worst that can happen? It's kind of a fun game to play, perhaps. I don't know. So
nobody who's been successful that doesn't have a bunch of failures they can tell you about.
Yeah. No, I love that. Well, I feel like we could talk forever. You're my dear friend. And again, I really encourage people to look you up on Facebook. Your posts are so wise and thoughtful, and it's really kind of an education in and of themselves day by day. I encourage people to check out Michael's books, The Trophy Effect, and of course, Mastery. And how can people follow up with you if they want to learn more or hear about programs you offer and that kind of thing?
Seriously, just I'm on Instagram as well, but I prefer Facebook, and I'm just Michael A. Nitti on Facebook, and
NITI. Yeah.
Coach Nitti on Instagram,
Yeah.
and I have, and I have a website, but it's like you can find me better on social media, I promise.
Yeah, perfect. Great. Well, again, an honor to spend time with you. You've really enhanced my life. I'm really, really grateful. And, again, we didn't even get into this part, but again, we were speaking recently and you mentioned that whole idea of, and maybe you can give us a minute on this. Why not? About, the people that come into your life or the things that happen in your life. And it's like, oh, that's just random, but maybe not.
Everybody I've met, everything I've ever done, even meeting my wife, the way I met her on a boat in Cleveland, Ohio, docked at a bar, and my buddy was up on the dock at the restaurant getting a couple of drinks, and he was standing next to two girls that said, hey, look at that nice boat. That's really a great boat. And he goes, it's mine. And he goes, you guys should come on board. And then the one girl said, nah, we were just getting ready to leave. My girlfriend here is going through a divorce. She's not happy. We were just ready to leave. You should really come on board then. You should talk to my buddy, which is me. He goes, what do you mean? Is he a therapist or something? He goes, no, he's better than that. You got to come on board. So he brings her on board. They do come on board, and I was busy talking to somebody. And already I was coaching somebody on the back of the boat. And she finally got tired of waiting, and I gave her my business card and said, well, give me a call. And I knew that would never happen. It doesn't. But so first of all, she wouldn't have even been on the boat if she wasn't standing right next to my friend. She could have been 5 feet away and I would have never met her.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day she calls me and I go, oh my, I can't believe it actually worked for once. And she goes, I said, so what can I do for you? She goes, well, we think my friend left her jacket on your boat. And I said, well, I'll go down and look. Our boat was right underneath the house. So I go down there and I find the jacket. I go, yes. So I call her. I said, go, I got your jacket. I'll bring it to you. And she goes, no, you don't need to do that. So I have somebody in the neighborhood. They can pick it up. But I go, no, I'm supposed to bring it to you. You're really supposed to. Well, it's not an accident that you left the jacket on the boat.
Right.
Synchro destiny. It's not an accident.
That's right.
Nobody leaves their jacket on purpose. It was an accident. I go, let me come and explain. So I drove across town, gave her a jacket. We had a great conversation over lunch. And we have now been married 33 years.
Oh, wow. I love it. I love it. Well, I love that. Synchrodestiny. Well, you inspire me. I encourage people to read your books and learn more about your work because they can all benefit as well. But, I just want to thank you for joining me. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom. Wonderful to be here. Thank you. Blessings.